I love that verse we just heard from Paul's letter to the Philippians. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. Paul wrote this letter when he was in prison in Rome facing execution. A friend from Philippi had brought aid to Paul and was now returning home, carrying with him Paul's letter. It is a letter of love and gratitude. Paul was reminding the church to rejoice always. True joy, enduring joy, not just fleeting happiness, exists wherever God's justice is a concrete reality. And I believe that God's justice is the equitable sharing of the gifts of God's grace among all of God's beloved creation. Paul believed in the justice which Jesus talked about was a justice-filled economy which brings joy to all. When we live in a society that values accumulation and greed, whether it be intentional or unintentional, one will find poverty, loneliness, despair, and oppression in every corner. And if you look around us, I believe we truly live in a society that values accumulation and greed. There's even a bumper sticker that says, "The one who dies with the most toys wins." When we look at what God has given to us with gratitude, we too can experience a true joy, a lasting joy, which events and circumstances cannot take away. It's something that is deeply rooted within our spirit. In the midst of our stewardship campaign and our theme of growing in generosity, I ask the question, what does it mean to be a generous person? Now, although there are many types of generous people, there are some common traits that the most generous of all people share. Whether they give their time, their money, these qualities are largely shared by the individuals most devoted to giving back to their communities and to their families. And the Latin root of the word for generosity means of noble birth, but is by no means limited to people in positions of power. So some of these traits are: generous people are unselfish. They give without hopes of receiving compensation for their good deeds. They give without expecting anything in return. If you're giving something and you expect to get a return on it, then you're not going to truly experience the true joy that Paul writes about. When you give, you just give because you want to give and because you're able to give. And I'm not just talking about money. We get so hung up on money. And while money is nice, you can give of your time, the gift of who you are. You can share a conversation with someone. You can offer someone something in need. Another trait about generous people is that they are very optimistic and they're idealist. They have a certain image of the way the world should be, and they strive to achieve that. Although the world is not a perfect place, these people do not stop giving of their time and of their energy or their money. As optimists, they see the world in a different light from others. They truly believe that though the world, although not perfect, can be made into a much better place. Amen. And certainly we know businesses that practice this. Tom's Shoes, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Tom's Shoes. For every pair of shoes that they sell, they donate a pair of shoes to a child in need. And I try to, when I shop, I try to look at businesses like that that are giving and generous, and put my money where my values are. I don't own a pair of Tom's Shoes because I don't really like the style. I think that what he does is great. Another trait of generous people is that they trust. It's a quality among them. They trust completely that the cause is a worthy one in which they're giving. And they trust that the people involved with that cause will do their best to achieve the goal. So in other words, when they give to an organization, they trust in the leadership of that organization. I know we've probably all heard of organizations that give back, or supposedly they're charities, and you find out that only 10% of what is donated to them goes to people in need. So when you do donate, be smart. Make sure if you're going to donate outside of this faith community or wherever you donate to, do some research to make sure that the money that you're giving, almost all of it, goes towards the organization, to the charity, not just to the corporate people. I find it very unpleasant when people who work for nonprofits make six-figure salaries. That just does not fit well with me. For those who give, they trust that those involved will use the time and the resources that they have shared appropriately. And certainly you all do that when you donate to the church or to the Deacons Fund. You trust that we will disperse those funds in a trustworthy manner. Amen. Also, generous people have a lot of energy. They devote most of their energy to the good that they want to do. It's their passion. They gain energy when they give, and certainly I know that when I first started in ministry, I found that the more I served in areas that I truly loved and enjoyed and I felt God had called me to, I would get energized, enthusiastic. They are revitalized and energized by the more good in which they do. There's been a research study lately, it was like a 12-year study, and it shows that people who describe themselves as very happy volunteer an average of 5.8 hours per month. Those who are unhappy volunteer just 0.6 hours. It was one of the most comprehensive studies of America's giving habits. Findings also include lower depression rates among Americans who donate more than 10% of their income. 41% of the group said they rarely or never experienced any depression, versus 32% for everyone else. So those who are generous do not have as much depression. And giving away money isn't the only way to be generous. People can be very giving in their relationships, being emotionally available, being hospitable to others. And those who are generous are much more likely to be in excellent health, 48%, versus those who are not generous, 31%. And as I said, being generous is not just about giving money. It is our time, our gifts, our talents, sharing the person that we are. I believe that we are a very generous congregation. We might not be one of the wealthiest, and that's okay, but I find us to be a very generous congregation. We have our Helping Hands ministry, which provides funds for people in need, and we help many people through that ministry. People that call here that have had their lights shut off or in danger of getting evicted, people who have a new job but don't have gas money to put in their car to get to and from their new job. And we try to provide for those people the best that we can. Once again, we're giving out our Thanksgiving baskets, and we've got everything out in the front lobby there if you want to sign up to provide a Thanksgiving basket for a family in need. Thanksgiving comes at the end of the month, and for families that are on food stamps, usually their food stamps run out before the end of the month. And trying to purchase everything for a Thanksgiving meal can be very costly. We have the Feed the Teens ministry, which a group comes in here on Wednesdays and packs food for teenagers at Manzano High School who otherwise would go hungry over the weekend. And I have met with several teenagers who said that the food has really helped them. And that was very affirming to hear back when you hear that something that you're doing has actually done something for somebody. We give of our time to people who call here seeking help, whatever help that might be. Sometimes they just need to reconcile themselves with God. Sometimes they just need somebody to talk to. We have the Littlest Angels ministry, which buries little infants that have been abandoned. And we have many groups which meet here. And I've always believed that MCCA is called to be generous with our building and open it up for groups and for other people to use. I think it's one of our gifts, and I think that's what we're called to do. Yes, sometimes it's very inconvenient. We have the bazaar coming up on Saturday, and then Incantata Band is doing a concert on Saturday night. So we've got to kind of rush to get things ready for their concert. But still, I believe it's something that we're called to do. And I would like to ask Samuel, one of our youngest people, to kind of share some of what he's been doing.
Good morning. I'm Samuel. Nice to talk. So, over the summer I started a theater company for teenagers because I was noticing sort of that there's not a lot of opportunity for teenagers to do theater, and the ones that they have are kind of not so great because they're either like doing children's theater with people who are a lot younger than them, or they're doing community theater with people who are older than them. And so then they're always in the background, and they don't ever get to just like be in the front and be doing what they want to do. And it's also hard to find like a creative outlet to do that stuff. So we started off, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was going to be. And we started off basically just rehearsing, not really rehearsing, we were just kind of meeting and like playing games and stuff. And so we would meet in my garage, and then sometimes we would meet in Uptown. And we had a good little group for a while, and then things were like getting a little rocky. And then I just decided to ask Pastor Judy if we could meet one time here and see. And then from there, like, I don't know, just this church and her being very generous let me and my group meet here. And I guess I'm very thankful for the generosity that has been put towards us just being allowed to meet here, because it's a really nice space. And I know it's convenient for my group, and it makes it less weird than saying come to my house and meet in my garage. But I'm also very thankful for the stuff that my parents have done, because they do a lot of work to make sure that it's up and running and that we can get stuff done. And the other thing is she's also allowed us to have events here. So we actually just had a Halloween party here this week, and it was a lot of fun, and we got to decorate. And we also have a performance coming up on November 19th, and it's our very first performance. And it's sort of that first time we get to experience the creative outlet we've been looking for. And it's on a Sunday, so it will be after church, and then hopefully people will be able to maybe stay, or like more people are usually free on Sundays. But I don't know, it's just great to be able to have something like we know, like a backbone, I guess, for our group. We know that if things don't work out exactly how we intended, we can always come back here and do our performances here and meet here, and that's just a really nice feeling to have. And I mean, I'm just thankful to God for everything that God's done for us, because I wouldn't have ever thought that this would be a thing that I'd be doing, and it's hard sometimes, but I think it's worth it. I think that's part of me trying to give my generosity too, is I really want to give back to the community and show that, give back to the people my age, because I think that's important. So, and thank you.
Their first performance on the 19th. I think it's in your bulletin this week. As we're doing stewardship, we're not going to do any guilt trips about money or sharing your time. And I know some of us live paycheck to paycheck or check to check, and some of us maybe barely make it each month. I get that. I understand that. If you're not able to give financially, there's other ways you can share your generosity. I often tell you stories about my granddaughter or my family, and I told you one about me a couple weeks ago about how she had me drive all the way to Bosque Farms when she was just... Well, I have a good story to share today. We were here working yesterday, and she's trying to get her provisional license, and she has to get some hours in driving, so she drove me here, and then we drove. I had an appointment in Nob Hill, and I said, well, let's do lunch. So we went to a little restaurant there, and we both had got lunch, and neither one of us, we ate about half of our meal. And as I was, I asked her to put the food in the car, and I was getting ready to walk it 2 doors down into where my appointment was, and I saw a homeless man walking down, a man who was homeless walking down the street, and I knew he was going to go to me. I just knew he was. And he went to Mia, and he was talking to her, and I stood outside and just kind of watched. I didn't interfere. I just let her handle it. And she turned and got our food out of the car and gave it to him because he was hungry. And I thought, well, I've done something right. And I know he was hungry because he started eating it right away. And I said, you know, you did the right thing. You did the right thing. So he didn't ask her for money. He said he was really hungry, and she gave him her food. And I was so proud of her. Doing something like that is an act of generosity. I would encourage you during this time, don't feel guilty. Give out of your generosity, out of your heart, and know that we can never outgive God. I truly believe that we can never outgive God. Will you join me in prayer, please? We thank you, God, for blessing us with so much. We have a place to lay our heads at night. We have food. We have a faith community, a wonderful building in which we can come and celebrate. We thank you for that, God. Let us always look at the many ways you have blessed us, and let us be a people that look at what we do have and not at what we don't have, and give thanks for that. We thank you for each person here today. We thank you for Samuel, his journey, and his family that you have brought here to us. Bless each person, and in your many names we pray. Amen. God bless you. Amen.